Alright, good morning guys. Welcome to part one of our webinars today on SolidWorks Composer. I am Jesse Sprague. I'm going to be doing the first section here, and Kevin Holbrook is going to be covering the second part. I'm going to be focusing on making better work instructions. So we're going to go over a few tips and techniques here, show you a little bit of what Composer can do, how it works, and how quickly it works, and what it can do for you. I do want to mention before we get started, I'm going to be calling it SolidWorks Composer. Don't get confused. It is the same product as 3D Via Composer. It has been renamed to SolidWorks Composer. It's a little bit closer to those of us who hold SolidWorks near and dear to our hearts. So they've kind of rolled it in a little bit closer. It does activate with like SolidWorks does. So if I make a slip and call it 3D Via Composer, it is the same product as SolidWorks Composer, but it's the new name. So before we get started here, we'll go over a quick agenda, a little bit of what I plan to cover here in this tutorial, or our webinar rather. I'm going to try to keep this to about 45 minutes if I can. If we've got some questions afterwards, of course, feel free to ask. And by all means, if I don't cover something and we don't get to it at the end, feel free to contact myself or Kevin and give us a shout if there's something that you need an answer to. So to get started, we'll go over a little bit of an intro. But what the meat and potatoes of what I want to get to in this webinar is going to be is, again, work instructions. So I'm going to go over some static images, things you would print out, send out to the shop floor, out with a product that would kind of describe how things go together. Next, I'll go through some animations that would be saved out as AVI files or something like that you could put up on a website or give to your coworkers or send along in an email. That would show someone how something comes apart or goes together. The last thing that I'm going to go over is one of the cool parts of Composer, and that's the interactive media. And that's one of the really cool advantages of having a tool like Composer that really gives you the edge over anything else. And then we'll just wrap things up. Before we get going, I do want to give some credit to where I got the models for this webinar. We're going to be looking at a RC car that I've kind of combined from a couple of different places. The TTO1 chassis came from JEPAZ up on GrabCAD. If you guys aren't used to GrabCAD, go take a look up there. There's tons and tons of cool stuff out there that you can download and play with. This particular chassis this is where I got this particular chassis here. The body that I stuck on top of it came from Naveen. I kind of modified a few of these things and stuck them together. So give those guys credit. For those of you who may be brand new to Composer, a little bit of background for you. Composer is a product that's kind of really found its place in the past few years. Composer has kind of a dual purpose, I'll say. It's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde kind of program. They've designed the program to meet the needs that a lot of people have right now, to meet them where they are, and that is sending out actual physical copies of assembly instructions, things of that nature. A lot of people are taking pictures with their cameras, marking them up, sticking those in a Word document, shipping those out, or something similar to that process. Where Composer is designed to kind of take that process and move it ahead of schedule quite a bit. And the way that it does that is by leveraging your 3D CAD data. Of course, you can bring that CAD data in a lot sooner in the design stage than you would be able to had you had to wait till you take pictures of it or have an artist draw a rendering of it. And Kevin's going to be going over a little bit of that too, in terms of updating and bringing those in a little more than I'm going to. But that CAD data is what allows you to really start this process ahead of schedule, if you will, from where you would have been able to before. I say the program is kind of Jekyll and Hyde because they've designed it to meet that that need and that you can create those images and work in that flow. But it's got another side to it, and that other side to it is a couple of the other topics that we're going to talk about a little bit in the animations and the interactive content. And that's where they're kind of trying to take this product and push towards the future, to kind of figure out what people are going to be doing to try to get this information across. There's through the global economy, we've got companies working with other companies or other divisions of their companies across the world, translating, trying to talk back and forth, where there may be a language barrier, or trying to get this information across to someone who may not understand or have the same background as the designers may have. So this tool again is designed to do both sides of that at once. And you'll see as we go through this how exactly that kind of toggles back and forth. So that's a quick background on Composer itself. So my first topic that I want to talk about a little bit is going to be those 2D images. So this is replacing where you would have someone running out on the shop floor, taking some pictures after the first prototype is built, assembling this thing all together and taking pictures as he goes along, and then trying to go up in there and mark these things up. So what we can do here in Composer would be to create our own pictures, if you will. Again, we're taking the CAD data. This is an assembly that I built, like I mentioned earlier, by combining a couple of parts an assembly and a part that I got online, made some modifications, stuck them together, and I've got my design. So this was a SolidWorks assembly. I've pulled it into Composer, and we're going to work with it in this Composer environment. The tab that I have open on the left-hand side here up in the corner, you can see is the Views tab. And this is where we're going to start that first process of essentially taking our images. The nice thing with Composer is you've got everything all rolled into one. If you're going out taking pictures of things out on the shop floor, you've got a JPEG image that you're taking, you're downloading those to your computer, you're making some markups in some other photo editing software, you're saving that back out, sticking it into some other program to combine all this together. Composer gives you the benefit right off the bat of being able to keep all that together. Of course, like I mentioned, being that it's coming from your CAD data, you have the extra advantage of being able to update that down the road. So to start things off here, I've got a quick example of how you might create some images for disassembly in this case. So the disassembly in this case is going to be pointed towards replacing or removing the bearing in the front of this RC car. Which could be a kind of complicated task for someone who may have just purchased the RC car, or even for someone out on the floor, maybe a new employee, someone who's not familiar with disassembly of this particular item. So what I've done is I've manipulated my model within Composer to create some images that will depict this process and describe this a little bit. If I move to my first step here, we'll take a look at this view here. And right off the bat, you'll see a couple things that are nice to have all rolled into one. I've got my image off to my right-hand side here of my assembly. I've got a close-up that I created with one of the workshops built into Composer with a little explode line so I can see exactly where that's coming out. I've got a leader that's dropped off so I can see where on the model this is occurring. And I've got some text that I've dropped in here just quickly through the Author tab, dropping in some text to describe what's going on. So I've got my first step, and that is going to be to remove the body pins of this RC car. So the pins pop out, and then the body will lift off. So step one, we've got describing in text in this case, what's going on with a little image that also goes along with that. If I walk along these steps here, I'll move to step two. You can see in Composer it's animating in between. You get all that for free. It basically just translates between things on its own. So if you're viewing this through Composer Player, or you're taking a look at the file in Composer, you'll get that benefit of being able to translate between those views, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. If I move to step 2, you can see I've got my text updated for the next step. Remove the body, and my pins are gone. My body is now lifted off, indicating that the body will now slide up off of the chassis. Moving to step 3, I now have a quick explode view that I've created down here of my wheel assembly. I've got my nut that needs to pop off here, and you can see this wheel assembly is going to slide out. I've got an explode line that shows where that center axis is, where all of these parts are coming out of, and again some text up here that's going to describe what that process is. You'll notice my body is now hidden, and I've moved down to the next layer. This next part I'm going to say is a little more complicated. We'll say we need to hold onto this shock assembly, so when we pull out the hardware that's holding this in, it expands. We don't want to lose the small parts. One of the cool advantages of having this 3D program is you can drop things in from other sources. This particular hand I just dropped in from a library of 3D models that I've got set up. I can pull these things in, tools, a hand to depict how this might, happen in the real world. If there's a particular tool necessary, drag those in. Anything to give you a little better indication of, how this process needs to happen. If I move on to my next step here, you can see the hardware has been removed. And my text has been updated to indicate that. And in the next step, you'll see the shock coming out for the shock removal. And just stepping someone through the process here. You can see my shock has now disappeared. My hardware has come out, indicating that those screws need to be removed. Okay. We've got a little arrow indicating that the control arm needs to be popped off of its joint. One of the cool things, again, with Composer is this is all 3D data. It's dynamic. It's in 3D, even though it looks like we're looking at a 2D image. And one of the cool advantages of that is you can see here in this particular example, I've got some of the background parts set to some particular opacity. So I've kind of blended those into the background a little bit, just enough so you can see the context of where the part is, but I can focus, I can highlight on some particular part that the action is occurring on. So in this case, I've got my assembly that we're trying to remove, the control arm here that's tied to it. The action between those two parts is what I'm trying to portray. I can kind of let everything fade into the background and allow those two parts to pop out, where in a standard image, with the camera, regular JPEG image, you've got to do some work by hand to get that done. Moving on to step 9, you can see I'm now bringing those two A-arms back into the foreground. So I've removed that opacity, pulled that off, and you can see I've got some arrows describing how those two A-arms need to pop apart in order to get that assembly to pull out. Lastly, I've got our final step, which shows a side view with a section view. And another tool that I've just dropped in this case a screwdriver. If you've got a custom tool, of course you can bring that in. I just use a screwdriver as an example and press this bearing out so we can replace it, or whatever the case may be. So at this point you can take all of these views, which again are 3D images, but they're in 2D. They've been flattened to 2D essentially when we save these out of Composer. So we can use this 3D tool to create this 2D content that can go out to be printed. Again, you can stick these images as we save these out into whatever you like. They're saved out as a regular image format, so JPEG, PNG, anything like that. You can bring those out, and it's as quick as easy as using one of the workshops. If we choose our high resolution workshop here, we can send these images out, and we can even do that all at once if we need to. We can use this multiple tab and say views here, and we can send out all those views at once and set those into a folder, and then we can even overwrite those if we want to have our document update down the line. So if we make some modification to our views, which are stored in Composer, all we have to do is come back to our high resolution workshop, go to our multiple under views, save those back out again, as long as you keep that same naming convention. If your images are linked in that document, they'll just update for you automatically. So this might land you with a document that's something like this. You might add some extra text in here, put this in a Word document, like I said, with some extra description. Otherwise, you could literally put them together like this. Send this out as a flyer that goes out with the product, or in this case, replacing a bearing isn't a likely scenario for to send out to a customer. But you could put this up on the website as one of the maintenance guides. So you can see I've taken those images, saved those out as JPEGs, and compiled these into one little guide here. Whereas we scroll down, we go from step 1 all the way through step 10, moving through those images that we just took a look at in Composer. So you can see at this point I've just got this saved out as one big JPEG image, and that can be sent to wherever we need it to go. Okay, so that all looks relatively impressive, but how easy is it to actually accomplish? You're thinking to yourself, all right, it's easy for Jesse to do, but that's all he does, all day long. So let's take a look at creating one of those images real quick, and just see what the process actually looks like. Let's take a look at, for example, what's a good one? We'll do step 3, and take a look at this step with our explode. So the first thing that we need to do is go in here and get rid of our body. We need our body to be removed in this view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my body, hit my H key, and away goes my body. I do have my clip still in here. Those are kind of hard to select from the graphics view. Never fear. We have an assembly tree here that we can still make use of. You can see, just like a SolidWorks tree, we've got our parts in here from our assembly, and it just so happens that I've added these in towards the bottom. I can get those guys selected, and off of my right click we have some hide and show options here. What I want to do is hide selection. So we'll get those guys hidden. You can see they are now unchecked in my tree. And what we want to do now is explode this wheel subassembly here. If I click on this component of this wheel, it shows up in my tree as this subassembly. So what I want to do is slide this out and explode this. We've got some really cool tools in Composer that will help us do that. What I can do is I can translate, and you can see I can slide this out as an assembly. Even cooler, we have explode modes. Linear explode is going to be the one that I want. And with my Alt key is the shortcut to curve detection. And you can see when I selected that ring there, that edge, it set me on axis. So I'm actually exploding in a direction that's not one of the axis directions of my part. My global direction this is not one of them. I can slide this out, and it's based on that geometry. So you can see that explode. All of those components in that subassembly have been auto-spaced out, and all I'm left with is needing my explode line here. I can grab this end component and add that line in fairly quickly. What I want to do is add a path, and I can create an associative path, which means it's going to keep track of where that component is and send a line back home. So you can see as I go through there, I get my line, but it's kind of overwriting things. So what I want to do is uncheck my enable for stay on top. And you can see it now hides behind those components. At this point, all I would have to do is save this view, which is as simple as Control-E or hitting this button up here, short of adding in my text, which again is just a 2D block. Okay, so I can add this in. Step 3, we can adjust the size of that. Toss in another note, and we're off and running. So that's a quick look at making static images in Composer. It's cool, it's quick, it's powerful, and of course it's more capable than I can really show in 15 minutes. But moving on to animations. Animations take these static images to the next level. Let's see what animations can do for us. Back in Composer, what we can do is switch modes. We're shifting gears in Composer. This little toggle button up here in the corner, as you can see in my tooltip, will switch me into animation mode. You can see I've got my timeline set down here, but it's grayed out. As soon as I switch this mode, my timeline comes alive. I've got some keys set in here already to show you an example of some animating in Composer. This particular example, I did an animation of what it might look like to describe how to remove the battery in this RC car. Let me play through the animation so we can see what we're working with. We've got some new tools here that I haven't mentioned so far. The one you just saw was the digger tool. So you can see highlighting where those pins need to come out. The pins slide out. Our antenna straightens. We're cued to remove the body. The body comes off. The body hides. Zoom to fit. Bracket removal. A little wiggle. It slides off. And now the battery can come out. So you can see this tool can be really powerful. You have all the advantages of being able to set these up as views, but you can animate this precisely the way you want. Animating in Composer is fairly easy. They've set up a nice system for keeping track of all of the information that you could potentially change in an animation. These 3 filters down here will help you control what you're actually seeing. The nice thing is in Composer you have the ultimate amount of control. You can control any of the properties for any of the parts. You can control their positions, their properties, anywhere they're going. You can store that information in that animation. Unfortunately, that creates a ton of data that you could potentially use or change as you're animating. Fortunately, with these filters down here, you can actually see what you're doing. These filters, as I move along, we have show keys for selected actors only, we have a show keys for selected properties only, and we have a show keys for location only. And what you can do is with a combination of those filters, you can see what you're trying to accomplish. For example, at this point, if I want this wheel to be removed or explode, like we saw in the previous example dealing with our static images, I can select that component and use these filters to be able to view what I'm seeing for keys. So if I go ahead and I grab this, again, we're looking to make some changes to this whole assembly. As I select that whole subassembly, I can turn on my filter for selected actors only. My selected actors only, again, are my subassembly. I turn that on and you'll notice all of my keys disappear. At this point, if I want to make a change to location, I would turn on my location filter as well. Let's say I want to make a move. I want to slide this out and then explode it, just like we did in our first image. What I would do is I would set an initial condition. I would say, I want to set this key for location. I can then move my timeline and say, okay, now I want to move the location of that subassembly. Back to translate where we were before, I can slide that out. And if I want this to slide and explode at the same time, I can feel free to go ahead and hit my linear explode, grab my curve detection again if I need it, and explode these parts out. Now I've still got all of those parts selected, so when I hit this button for set location keys, I'm setting the location key for every one of those components. If I clear my filters, I've got 2 additional keys, and you can see that motion take place. My battery comes out, and off comes my wheel. It's a simple process of before and after. Fortunately, it's the same thing over and over and over again, so you can get pretty used to the system, and you can create animations nice and quick. Again, the cool thing is you've got access to everything you've got in views. Okay, all of these arrows, markups, notes. You can drop those in as in the animation as well to help smooth the process along. Let's go back and take a look at what tool I had at the beginning. This guy. Let me pause this. This is a really neat tool that Composer has built into it. This tool is called the Digger tool. The Digger tool is multi-talented. If I expand out the tools here that we have available to us, we can see kind of what the Digger will do for us. The Digger has 4 tools built into it. The most basic one being Zoom. Zoom, as you can see, I can use the Digger tool as the magnifying glass essentially. You can see that my location is pointed over here to where my clip mounts into the post, and I've got a nice close-up on it. My other options here are slightly different. Cutting plane will let me chop through my model in a way that I can see what's going on inside here. As I adjust this, you can see that cutting plane is sweeping into the screen, if you will, and giving me an interactive section view. Now the last two tools rather, of the Digger work in similar fashion, but their display is slightly different. If I move up to the X-ray, what the X-ray tool will do is ghost out components that are near that plane without showing the plane, and it'll leave the rest of them opaque. Anything in front of the plane, it will hide. So you can see I can interactively sweep this, and those parts will show or hide as we go along. This will let you get exactly that view that you're looking for quickly and easily without having to go in there, select all those components, hide them, and leave those components that you're looking for available. You can give this a sweep and be able to quickly highlight components in a way that you wouldn't be able to, again, with an image that you've taken with a camera, for example, like we mentioned earlier. The final tool is the onion skin tool, and that does a similar thing, except it leaves out the ghost. So if I modify this here as I slide this back and forth, you can see that it's doing the same thing in that it's sweeping that plane backwards through the part here, through our assembly rather, except now it's just hiding. Okay, so that ghosting is gone. So you lose the context of where those parts are, but it hides everything in front. Okay, so the Digger tool is a really cool tool for quickly getting in there and getting some nitty-gritty detail that will help you describe your process quite a bit easier. Now, the coolest thing with the Digger tool is that you can even animate it. So you see I've set a couple of Digger keys here along the bottom, and you can see that as I scrub through this, my Digger tool maximizes, holds for some period of time, and then shrinks and disappears. Okay, so you can control what the Digger is doing throughout the course of an animation. Likewise, you can control what the camera is doing throughout an animation. So by now you may have picked up, I've got a stack of different types of keys throughout this animation. On the bottom I've got my Digger key, on the middle I've got my camera key, and on the top I have any of those geometry keys that are stacked on top of each other. Okay, so this is why your filter is important. All of those other keys are layered on top of each other. Be they property changes, location changes, they're all stacked, and that's why these filters will get you exactly what you're looking for. You'll notice as we sweep along, if I scrub towards the end here, I've got no camera changes until we get towards the end. If I keep sliding here, we'll jump ahead to this point here where I've got a new camera key, and now from here to here, from 20 to 24, my camera makes a change. Okay, so we can see that as I scrub through. Alright, and I've got a few more camera keys back here, which bring my camera position back in. Okay, so you have an infinite amount of control in the Composer animating tool, but fortunately they have made it easy enough with these filters that you can quickly get to what you're looking to adjust. So let's go back and watch one more time. We've got a close-up, our pins slide out, our antenna straightens, time to remove the body comes up, the body disappears, our bracket comes off, and subsequently we are able to now take the battery out. Okay, and tagged on the end we've got our explode that we created just a moment ago. Okay, so we've taken a look at creating some static images, we've taken a quick look at doing some animations. Let's take a look at the third component here that we're going to look at in this webinar, and that is the interactive media. You may have noticed while we were working on those images for our stills, I had made some modifications to the ones that you had seen in that main JPEG. If I start on step 1 here, you notice I have some buttons down here. This is a good place to introduce where this came from, and that would be my image library. My image library I touched on a little bit closely when I talked about dragging in some other tools. I've got my hand in there showing squeezing the shock. I've got a screwdriver in there to press out the bearing. If I choose my image library, you can see I've got some options. Okay, so these are things that have been dropped down. So widgets, I've got different images that I can add in to give a little extra sense of clarity. In this case, I've used some widgets. I've got some images for next buttons, next and back. What I've done here is I've dropped these in similar to what I did with the hand model. For example, I've got some models saved in here, different tools that might be used along the way to assemble or disassemble some pieces. If we take a look at how these work, we can see that I've got this button down here, but how does it link to anything? If I select this image, I've got a properties pane. Properties pane I haven't introduced yet. The properties pane is probably one of the most important panes in all of Composer. The properties pane contains properties for whatever you have selected. In this case, I've only got one thing selected, so it's just giving me the properties for this particular 2D image. If I scroll down here, one of the properties in here is a link. I can link anything to anything. In this case, what I want to do is link this image to my next view. So I'm on step 1 right now. I want this link to be step 2. All I have to do is select this image, scroll down, choose my link, and browse. And when I browse, what I can do is select View. You can see I have a myriad of things that I can link to. In this case, I want to link to a view. And that view is going to be one of the views available from my Views pane. Okay, so I want to link step 1 to my next button to step 2. And what I've done is I've done that throughout these images here. If I go to step 2, I've got a reverse button. Reverse button linked to step 1. My forward button linked to step 3. So on and so forth throughout my steps until I get to my final one, step 10, which I've got set to a new button, which is start over. My start over button is linked back to step 1. So let's see how these work. If I go back to step 1, we can take a look at how this would perform had someone opened it with player. I can toggle composer from design mode to player mode. If I select this little button down here, I now am viewing this composer file as if I had opened it in player. So this is how someone would view your file had they opened it, on the shop floor with their composer player. Composer player is essentially the e-drawings of composer. I can test my links in this mode. So if I select this button, I should move to step 2. Let's see if it works. Sure enough, as soon as I do that, it moves me on to step 2. If I need to go back and take a look at step 1 again, I can go back. And I can move along at my own pace. The advantage of this is it gives your user, either the person who's purchasing your product and making these modifications or adjustments, or someone out on your shop floor that's trying to figure out how to assemble this so it can go out the door, gives them the ability to move at their own pace. They can move through these views and still get the advantage of seeing these animate in real time. So as I click through here, you can see it gives me a much better idea of what's going on than even those still images do. The still images are good, but this kind of meet in the middle sort of animation, let me move through these views, is even better, right? Because at this point you can kind of lead someone by the nose, dangle a carrot in front of them and tell them exactly what you want them to see. This lets you control what information they get. So as we click through here, you can see the progression of disassembly. My screws come out, flip around, pop off our control arm, pull off our A-arms, and now at this point we have the option to run back through or start over from the beginning. Okay, so this is a very powerful technique. This is one of my favorite things to do in Composer. In fact, I made an example that's a little bit different from this, but works on the same principle. And what I had done is I had created a series of links through this C-scooter. The C-scooter example, you may have seen this this assembly around. What I've done with it in Composer is I've kind of rearranged it in a sense that I can let someone else manipulate this model all on their own by just clicking around the model to explore it. So what I've done is I've created 4 different colors. And those 4 different color swatches are just 2D images that I found on Google somewhere. Those swatches are linked to a view. Now taking this up another level from where we just were, these views are custom views. Custom views bring the final element in here. And if I go to my views workshop, you can see these custom views you can set up to apply or save only what you want them to. Now, admittedly, this can get confusing really quick. But in essence, what I've done here is I've set this up so that these swatches are tied to views that only save the information that I want, in this case, color. So if I select one of these swatches, it's tied to a view that's only saving the color for some particular selected components. These selected components are the plastic pieces that are molded, in color. The advantage of doing this is I can have my model at any point, and I can still change those options. So no matter where my model is, I'm still able to make those adjustments because those views are only saving the information that I want. Likewise, instead of linking 2D images, you can also link geometry. So what I've done in this example is I've linked all of the geometry to more custom views that only save the information that I want. You can see if I scroll down here briefly, here's all the different views that I created for all the different variations of what the possibilities are. If I click on the nose cone comes off. If I click on this centerpiece, that does as well. So you can see as I move around this part, I can do whatever I want to it in whatever order by selecting those pieces. Those pieces are linked to those custom views that are controlling only location for those selected items. So I can do anything in any order and still have it all reassemble back no matter what I do. So this is kind of a neat way to combine that animation with the interactive content and letting them explore the model. This takes a little bit more setup time, so you would want to have some specific idea for why you would want this to happen. But this is a really cool example for something that you can stick on your website. The idea that I got this example from was actually a car. I think it was a Renault. And it was set up on the website so that you could click on the different parts of the car. You could click on the door would open. You could click on the window would go down. You click on it, it'd go back up. You could adjust the color, and you could do everything independently of everything else. And I had tried to figure out how to do that and stumbled upon this solution, which is how they actually created it. Really powerful. So you have that ability to go from one end of the spectrum to the other with this interactive animation content that you can kind of either control exactly what you want them to see. You can step them through the process of do this at this point, do this at this point, do this at this point, where you can give them strict assembly or disassembly instructions, or you can go the complete opposite direction and give them complete freedom within some kind of fences that you've essentially constructed with your custom views. So again, I've set this model up so that it'll only do what I want it to, but the user can do whatever they want. They get the feeling that they're controlling everything from their vantage point. So I'll go ahead and wrap this up so we at least have time for some questions if you guys have any. So we've covered some static images. Again, these are replacing your phone pictures, your camera pictures that are being loaded onto your computer, marked up in some other program, saved out into Word, and sent out as instructions. Again, your static images have a bunch of different advantages over that process. You've got the ability to update those images as your design updates. Okay, you've got the advantage of being able to start that process a lot earlier than you would be able to, where you've had to wait until that prototype is done. You can now start with those early production models of your SolidWorks models, so you can start while this thing is in its infancy and carry that through, so you're creating your documentation alongside your design process. You've got the advantages of being able to mark everything up right in one product. You can keep everything right together, and it updates along with it, so you can make those changes, keep everything together as you go. And you've also got the ability to highlight those things. If you remember, I was hiding and adjusting the opacity of different components so I could highlight other components that I wanted to bring forward. We talked about some animations. We looked at animations a little bit and how those animations work and setting those keys, those 3 different types of keys, and the filtering system that they've developed to really give you the ultimate amount of control with a lot of simplicity, built into that mindset. Animations are quick to do, and they're really powerful. If you send somebody a video, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I don't know what a video is worth, but they're great descriptors that you can send to somebody, and play through a video that shows the thing coming apart or going together. It makes a whole lot more sense than looking at even a string of images sometimes. Lastly, we took a look at some of the interactive media opportunities that you have built into Composer, with those linking, where you can link just simply to a next button and lead someone along the process of how something would come apart or go together. And we also looked at the ability to kind of free-for-all with those custom views, and be able to let somebody figure out what it is they need to see within the structure that you've created for them. So hopefully that's shed some light on how Composer works, a little bit what you can do with it, what advantages it has, and I hope you check out Kevin's session later this afternoon. He's got some good info for you, so please tune in for that. And if you've got any questions, please go ahead and ask us now. Thanks.